Hello friends, today we are going to develop a mobile GIS field survey application as you can see on the screen. So let us first of all understand how the application works and then we will move to the coding part. So this is a HTML5 GIS field survey application and it is providing basic functionalities including start editing, add feature, modify attribute and delete feature. And it is having a layer switcher button like this. So when we click on that, it will open up the layers that we have added into the map. So there are various base layers. You can see right now it is OpenStreetMap layer which is switched on. I can switch back to world imagery layer, so I can do zoom in and zoom out operations on top of that. I can switch back to OpenStreetMap layer. At the same time, as per requirement, I can switch to none layer. So I will be displaying my local database rather than displaying OpenStreetMap or world imagery. In addition to that, it is having a land-based layer. So you can see over here building, landmarks and roads. So let me go back to OpenStreetMap layer as a base map, and then when I switch on land-based layer, you can see over here it is showing the land base which I have already digitized into the database. So this is a road layer which is showing in black dash pattern, and this is a building layer which is showing in a yellow color, and this is a landmark layer which is shown in a blue circle marker. So these are the land-based layers which we have already into the database, and now this application will allow us to do the digitization land-based survey using a mobile device. We have also provided a measure toolbar, so when we click on that it turns into red, and then I can add the feature based on the length parameters. So I can click and then measure the length. So this is a basic length measure functionality which we have provided. Now the main digitization part comes. So here it is a settings button. So it allows us to select the layer which we want to define as active layer, which will be available for digitization. So when I click on this drop down, it is providing all the three layers which I have added into the map. So I can select any of these layers. So right now I am selecting road layer, and then as soon as I select this layer, the start editing button is active. So when I click on start editing button, this road layer will be highlighted, showing that it is available for editing. At the same time, here on top of the screen, it will show that currently active layer is a road layer. And you can see road layer is highlighted on the screen. Other layers are normal. It means that road layer is available for digitization. So I have clicked on start editing. So other editing functionalities like add feature, modify feature, attribute and delete feature are enabled. I can perform any of these operations right now. So let me zoom into a particular area and let me digitize this road. So I want to add feature. So I am clicking on that, and then snapping will be enabled automatically. So when I keep on clicking on the map, road feature will be added. You can see over here I am adding the road. For completing the digitization, I have to double click, and you can see over here it is asking for the attributes. These attributes are defined into the database at the time of creation of the layer. So it is asking for the road name. So I am entering the data like road A, it is a straight road, some attributes as per our defined data structure, and I click save. As soon as I click save, this particular road is added into the database. So when I click this add feature button again, it will be disabled. It will be completing this road visibility onto the map. And now if I do the stop editing, and if I do zoom in and zoom out, you can see the newly added road is available and it is visible. Now in this zoom level it is not visible because it has to generate the tile. So when we do zoom in and zoom out for multiple tiles, it will generate the tiles for that, because this is coming straight away from the database based on the tile services. So a new road has been added. Similarly, I can do the start editing and I can click on modify feature. So all these road features are available for modification. I have to click on any of this feature. Say I have selected this road feature for modification. Now I can modify it. For example, I want to make it a straight road connecting these two rather than digitizing like this. So what I have to do is I have to select this and then I can modify the shape of the road like this, the way you can see on the screen. So now this is a straight road. I have modified the shape. Now I can just click on this because right now I just want to modify the shape. I don't want to change the attributes. So I click back here. It will ask me whether you want to save the edits. I'll say okay. So now this new road is like this. Now when I do the stop editing and I do zoom in and zoom out, tiles will be generated based on my latest editing activity. You can see now this new tile is based on this continuous road rather than the road which was taking the turn. So road has been modified into the database. Now other functionality is modify attributes. Let me do the start editing. So road features are available for the editing. Now I can click on the modify feature button and then I have to click on any of this road for which I want to modify the attributes. So let me click here. So you can see it is providing all the attributes which we have added at the time of creating them. So I'll change it from road A to road B and then I'll call it a main road rather than a straight road, and I'll save button. So attribute has been saved into the database. Now if I want to check whether it has been updated or not, I have to click it again and you can see road B and main attribute. This is coming from the database, which is a PostgreSQL in this case. So it has been updated into the database. I can click cancel. So this road attributes have been modified. I can click on any of this road and you can see it is providing existing attribute. I can change it. So like this I can do the modify attribute activity also. So this is the important part. Now next thing is delete feature. So I have already clicked on this. So start editing is already enabled. Now I have to select on this click on this delete feature button and then I have to select the feature which I want to delete. For example, if I click on this feature, it will be highlighted and it will ask whether you want to delete. I'll say okay, and this feature is deleted from the database. To complete the deletion activity, I'll have to click on this button again. So this activity is complete and the button will turn into white again. And then when I click on this stop editing, you can see the feature has been deleted. So this is how we have performed all the add, modify attribute, modify feature and then delete feature activity onto the mobile field survey application. So this is the all about the application. Now you can see this is a very useful application. Many times we want to do the data capture activity onto the field. So this can be useful. So let us go to the coding part, how it works. So we are going to create this application right from the scratch. So let us create this entire application. To support this application, I have created a field survey folder in my htdocs Apache 24 folder. So you can see my field survey folder contains resources and I have following resources which will be useful in developing this application. So I have used Bootstrap or Font Awesome, and then I have certain images which will be required to create the icons for the buttons. So these are the images. I will also be using jQuery functionality. So I have downloaded jQuery 3.6 and then there is a layer switcher which is a plugin for OL, and this is the Openlayers library, CSS and JavaScript. So these are the resources which I will be using. So this is the field survey folder in which my entire application will reside. So resources I have downloaded. Now let us go to the development part. So I am using a Visual Code software for application development, and you can see over here I have opened the field survey folder over here. Now we will start the development part. First of all, I will be creating 3 files here. So let me create the first file, index.html, and then I am creating a main.js JavaScript file, and the third is style.css. These are the 3 files which I will be requiring. So I created these 3 files. Now let us go to the index.html file. This is a blank file as of now. So let me first of all have boilerplate for HTML. So Visual Code is very useful software. It provides IntelliSense and then various shortcuts for rapid application development. So this is the boilerplate which I have created, and then let us start coding. So first of all, I'll be adding certain codes which will help this application to work smoothly on web as well as mobile platform. So let me add some code for that. So I have added couple of lines. You can see over here. These are the lines which are required to make the application compatible on mobile device. At the same time, when I open this application on mobile, it will not be opened as a web page in a browser. I can create a shortcut for it similar to other applications. So icon will be available on the mobile, and then when I click on icon, it will open up as an application rather than opening something into the web browser. So these are the code, you can just note down. I have copied the code here, and now we will start this application development. So here I am changing the title to GIS field survey. Now we have added multiple resources, so we have to provide the link for that. So let me create the link. So I am providing first of all link to the resources well.css. So this is the link for that. Now let me create multiple links for other resources. Now here I want to use the Google fonts. So for using the Google fonts, let me show you how you can use Google font in any of the application. So what I am doing is I am going to fonts.google.com, and then I want to use Roboto fonts in my application. So here I just have to type Roboto, and then I'll have to click here. So when I click on this Roboto, it will provide various options. So I want to use Roboto 400 regular. So I am clicking or selecting this style. So it is providing me, see all the help. It is very user friendly. I just have to select this and then add it into my HTML file. So I can use this Roboto font. Now what I have to do is, I have to apply this Roboto font to my entire body. So I just copy this thing, then in body I'll paste this thing. So now all the data will be using Roboto font family. So the Roboto font will be available for my entire application. So I have used Google Fonts, and then I'll have to link my local style file. So and then I'm using my local style file, so styles.css. So I have linked all my style related files into this application. Now I want to have an icon for my application, so I'll say link, and then So why I have done is I have provided this particular link in order to have this kind of icon to my application, so that whenever somebody opens in browser, this kind of icon will be available to my application. You can see Google font is also having some icon. So to provide this kind of icon, I have provided this line. So now let me save this file. So my CSS related linking is completed. Now let us go to the body, and here I have to provide link to all the JavaScript file. So let me do it one by one. Now what we want is, we want our application to look like this. You can see we want some header part, we want some footer part, and then some body part. So let us develop the HTML to contain these three parts. So I am creating a div element, the ID, div, header. I am creating other div element with ID, map, which will basically contain my map. Then I am creating other div element with ID, div, footer. So we have created basically three div elements to contain three portions of our application. Now what is the extent of these three portions, how they will share the map area? For that we have to go to the styling part. So let me save this file first, and then I'll go to styles. So in the styles, I'll provide the style to div header. So I want to keep it with height 10 vertical height. So it will be basically 10% of the entire screen area vertically. I want to keep the color as empty white. Background color, I want to give some hash value, that is 46679. So give the background color, and then text element I want to have it center, and then position is related. So this is what I want for header portion. Then let us define styling for map part. So I want to provide height of 80 vertical height, and then position is related. So this is for map. And then for div footer, so I want to have height of 10 vertical height, color again antique white, background again same as header 46679, and then position relative. So you can see over here we have defined header. It will be containing 10% of the screen area, map will be containing 80%, and then footer will be containing 80%. So let me save it, and then let us open up a web browser to see how it looks like. Let me open up the web application for GIS field survey. So you can see over here. Now let me show it into a mobile kind of a format. So I am using Microsoft Edge. It provides a very beautiful functionality. You can see over here, it looks like the way we want, the kind of look and feel we want to give. So it is a 10% header, and then 80% map area, and then 10% footer. So this is what we wanted. So we have defined the portions, the way we want. Now let us add this kind of a header text to our application GIS field survey. We also want to provide this active layer text and this lat long text. This lat long is nothing but the coordinate of the center point. So if I move the map like this, you can see over here the coordinates are changing. Sometimes these coordinates are useful, so I have provided that. So let us do the HTML and coding part of it. So I'm going to HTML part of it, and then it is into the header, right? So we'll provide it into the header. So I'm creating a span element with ID, span header, and the text is GIS I'm also creating other span element that with ID span. I'm creating one more span element ID is equal to span left. So we have created this 3 span. Now where it is to be placed and how it should look like, so we'll go for a styling part of it. Let us go to the style here. Because it is defined based on ID, so I'll be using hash span header. So let me quickly define the style. I want to display it in inline book. Line height I am keeping normal. Position, in this case I want to keep absolute. I'm saying top 50%. Margin top I want to give minus 25 pixels. Left also I want to keep 50%, so that basically it is at the center, and to make it perfectly centered I am seeing margin left minus 86 pixels. And then font weight I want to keep bold, and font size I want to keep 24 pixels. So this is how I have provided span header. Then I will do the same styling for span accuracy, fast span let long. So let us define the style for span let long. So I am saying position absolute, top 75% because I want it to be little bit down compared to the span header. Right, and font size I want small. This is span let long. Similarly for span active layer. So I'll copy all these three and paste it here. Basically it has to be on the left side, other things remain same. So I have done this part of it, styling. Now let us refresh the application and whether it is coming properly. You can see GIS field survey is available, latitude, longitude, and this active layer. Right now we have not defined the content. You can see over here in this HTML part, we have only defined span element and we have defined where it has to be placed, but like header we have not defined the content, so it is not displaying on the screen like what is the content. Otherwise application is working fine. Now when the content will come, when we will have something on the map and something will be available as active layer, that time content will be available, so we'll define it at the right point in time. So right now we have defined the location and span elements. Now what next? Now let us define the map part of it and how it should look like. So let us do the configuration for map area. We have already defined the style for the map. We will quickly go to the JavaScript file. So these are some of the variables which we will be using throughout our application. So I have defined it once for all. You can see here the first variable is server IP. So I'm developing this application on localhost and it is on 8080 port. So I have provided these two variables. My workspace is GIS workspace, which I defined in GeoServer, and I am using the projection system EPSG 3857. These are some of the variables which I will be requiring uh, during the application. So basically layer list, active layer name, edit GeoJSON. So we'll be talking about this thing as and when they will be useful. So let us start on the map part. So now we will define the map view variable map view. Map view requires us to provide two inputs, center and zoom level. So I am providing center based on the latitude longitude. So I have to project it. So this is the let long on which I want my map to be centered at when it starts, and zoom level I am providing 12. So my map should be zoomed at a level 12. Now I am creating a variable map. So here we have created div element map, so it will be used as a target. So this is for that. Map view, which we have defined just above, will be used for as a view. And you can see over here controls I am specifying as a empty array. So I don't want any control to be placed on that. So we have defined how map should look like, where it will be placed, where it should zoom, and what will be the center of the map. Now right now it is empty, so if I go and refresh my application, nothing will be displayed. Why? Because we have created a map where it should be centered and where it should be zoomed, but then we have not specified which layers are there into the map. So let us go and add some layers into the map. So now I am going to add some layers onto the map. As you can see over here in our application, as a base map we have three layers. One is none, one is OpenStreetMap, and third one is a world imagery. So we'll be adding these three base layers as of now in this map. So I'm creating the first image style as a variable, and let me quickly add the code for creating the base layer. So I am giving it a title. So I am creating basically a tile layer and giving it a title world imagery. Source, now I have to define from where the tiles will come. So it is new.ol.source xyz, and here I have to provide the URL. So you can see over here it is HTTPS. I'm using ArcGIS world imagery, so it is server.arcgisonline.com/arcgis. You can see over here it is Z, Y, and X. So this Z, Y, X is nothing but the zoom level, Y coordinate and X coordinate. So this is the URL which we have provided, and then we are calling this layer with type as base, so it will become a base layer for us. And the base layer means only one base layer will be visible at a time. So by default we are seeing visible as false for this particular layer. So we have defined one layer. Remember, we are yet to add it into the map area, so we have just defined the layer. Now similarly, let me define other layer for OSM. OpenStreetMap as the title. I'm giving it a type as base, and then I want to make it visible true initially, and then source. Here OL provides the direct source for OSM, so you have to click OSM.source. This is the source you have to provide. So now we have created the second layer. Now we'll create the third layer for none. Title we want to give as none. Type again is base, and visible we want to keep it false by default. So you can see over here we have three layers: image layer, OSM layer, and none layer, out of which these two layers, image and none, will be visible false by default, whereas OpenStreetMap layer will be visible true by default. Okay, now I'm creating a new variable group layer. Group. This will basically group all the layers, so I don't have to add each and every layer individually. And here I define which are the layers to be added into this group layers. So I am saying image type, OS tile, and then none tile. And you know the sequence is important, so I am adding first image tile, then OSM tile, then none tile, so that it will be available in the sequence only: none, OpenStreet, and world imagery in the reverse order, the way in which I add image, OSM, and none. So on the map it will be displayed as none, OSM, and image. This is how it works. So we have created a base layer. Now let me save it and let me open it into the application. When I refresh it, nothing is coming up. Let us see. Okay, why nothing is coming up? Because so far I have defined all the variables. I am yet to add this into the map. I have to call a function map.add layer and say base group. Now this is where I am actually adding the layers. So let us see now. So you can see over here the maps are coming up, and it is zoomed at a particular location where I want. Now let me change this. Right now you can see over here we have created a view, and we have centered the map based on the lat long position, based on which it is looking at some position initially. We can define it based on the simple coordinates. So I am zooming it to some area based on my area of interest where I want the map to be centered initially. So I am having the map like this. Now here you can use this console, and we already have a map view, so we can call the function get center. So this is the center. Now I can simply copy this thing and provide it here. So rather than doing this long activity, we can make it map view.center this. Now when I zoom, you can see now map is centered at this place. We can also make the zoom level as per our requirement, like little bit closer, so that we can call it rather than 12, it can be 7. So now when I refresh the map, you can see the map will be zoomed out. So I want to go closer, right? So we will be providing, rather than 12, we'll be providing say 17. And then when we refresh the map, you can see the map is centered at our location. So I'll be keeping it 15 so that it is visible properly. Yeah, so this is how I want it to be. So now map is available like in our application, but here we have a layer switcher button, you can see. So I can switch on and off the map. So now let us do the coding for layer switcher button. At the same time also provide this line based layers. So we'll be doing coding for that now. So let us go at the bottom and add, the way we have added these base layers, we will add some line based layers, and then we will provide layer switcher. Let us add some line based layer. So again we will provide variable building type, so here again title building, and then source from where these buildings will come. Now see, all these other layers, they were coming from some service providers. Now the source building layer will come from local GeoServer installation WMS services. So I have to define this accordingly. So you can see the source. Now I have to define the URL. So I am using GeoServer services. Now we'll be using the variables which you have defined. GeoServer port, next page. Now why I have defined this kind of a variable, so that we can change only those parameters and everything will work fine. So it will be helpful to you when you want to change the application as per your requirement. So I am providing certain parameters. This is how I am providing parameters that I want to display the GIS building layer, and it should be tiled. Now I am seeing server type. Here I am specifying it is coming from GeoServer, and transition as 0. So these are the inputs which we have provided. So we have defined a variable, and I have defined that it is a building tile. Now the way we have added building tile, I am adding other layers for landmark and road. These are the 3 layers. So I'll simply copy it 2 times. I'm using shortcuts of Visual Studio Code. So I have to change the name here. So first of all, changing the variable name lm tile for landmark, and I will call it landmark, and this is the only thing I have to change. And then for roads and layer hard. So now 3 variables are defined. Now I will again create a group layer. Create group layer, land base layers. So group layer which I am creating, so I am giving the title land base. I want to keep it folded initially, so I am saying fold close, and then I want to make it visible false initially when it loads, and then layers. Road tile, landmark tile, and building tile. You know the sequence, importance of the sequence by now. So we have created a group layers, and now finally I will add layer and base layer. So now these layers are added, and initially it is visible at false. So even if we refresh it, our application, nothing will be visible apart from this particular map. So now let us add a layer switcher so that we can switch on the land base as well. So we'll go to the coding part of layer switchers. I'm doing the coding to add the layer switcher. So I'm creating a variable layer switcher. This layer switcher particular component is coming from the resource which you have added for the layer switcher. Now this deep label will be useful when we are working on browser. These are some of the parameters which we have to provide. So we have created a variable for layer switcher, and now map.add control. So we are adding a control to map called layer switcher. Right, so we have added it to map. Now let us see how it looks like. So you can see layer switcher is available here, and now when I click on it, it is providing base maps. So we have none, OpenStreetMap, world imagery. At the same time we have land base, so all 3 layers. Now here I can switch from OpenStreetMap to world imagery. You can see over here it is working perfectly fine. And when it is a base map, you can see here in the code, while adding the base maps, we have defined the type as base, and that is why it is a radio button. So only one layer is active, none, OpenStreetMap and world street imagery. And then in the land base part, we have building, landmarks and roads. So now let me move it somewhat here, and then let me switch it on. So it will be displaying us building, landmarks and roads. Let me do some zooming in and zooming out so that the layers are visible. It is going to take some time to read from the database for the first time. Yeah, you can see over here we have 3 layers. This is the building layers in yellow color, roads are in black dash pattern, and landmark is in circle marker blue color. So this is excellent, working fine, but I am not liking this layer switcher symbol. I want to make it look like this, somewhat decent. So let us do the styling part of it. So we will go to the styles now. Let me come to the bottom. Layer switcher to be right by 1px, top by 1px, font size to be small. Picture dot shown, so when it is displayed, how it should look like. So I'm saying max height to be 250px. Some more styling part for layer switcher. So how the button should look like. So background image I want to change. I don't like that particular image. So based on my liking, resources, layers.svg, this is the image I like. What will be the size? 30x by 30px, and background color I want it black. So this is about the button. Want the same background color, so I'll simply copy this. Group button, background size I want 16px by 16px. That's what I want. So this is all about layer switcher styling. Now I have saved it. Now let us see how it looks like. Yeah, so it is the way we want. The button icon has been changed, the position has been changed. Now when I click, font has been changed, it is reduced a little bit, and now you can see it is working the way we want. So layers are visible now, and then on and off as per our requirement. So this is working perfectly fine. So far we have added layer switcher and the styling part of it. Now let us, now once we have map on the screen, let us add latitude longitude information over here, and then we will add a measure length button over here. So let us add the latitude longitude content. Now when we have map already there, let us add latitude longitude information. So now this is a Java query to select a particular element with id is equal to this let long, and now I am saying HTML. So I am using projection class to do the projection to let long. Map.getView, get center, so this is what I am doing. Now let me explain you what I am doing. I want to change the projection because let me take you here. Now again you can see we have map view.getCenter. So when we take map view.getCenter, the information is available in terms of UTM coordinates. These are not latitude longitude, so we have to do the transformation from this coordinate to latitude longitude. So that is why what we are doing is map view.getCenter dot, and here we are using to let long. So we are converting this center to latitude and longitude. Now here you can see we have first long and then let, and so we are using this information. So now let me show you how it looks like on the screen. So when I copy this and when I show it you on the screen, you can see over here we are getting the latitude information, and then we will do the same thing for longitude information. So for that we will be changing just this from 1 to 0, and then we will have longitude information, and ultimately we want to display these two things over here in the span. So I am doing the coding for that only. So it will be separated by comma, so I have added that. So I will simply copy this portion, and as I have shown you, I will change it from 1 to 0, and then completing the bracket. So this is basic, and for span active layer .html will be defining, because initially the active layer is not set, so we will say active layer not defined. This is how we will define the content of active layer span. So let me refresh the map and show you how it looks like. So you can see over here latitude longitude information is available. Now active layer span is not available. Let me see, I think I would have done some typing mistake. Span active layer, let me do the copy and paste, and now when I refresh it, see active layer not defined. So both the informations are available here. Now what we want is, basically right now it is showing the center of the map, but what if when I move this map like this? So I want this latitude longitude to be updated based on the center of the map even when I move it like this. So let me do the coding for that. So it is very simple. So I am creating a function on pointer move. It is getting a variable e. So on pointer move, I want to do the same thing which I have done here. Change the content of the span. So I am just copying this. But when this function will be called, let us define that also. So now what I am doing is I am defining area to contain some of the functions that will be called during the onload event. So this is basically Java query, jQuery trick to call the function once the loading of the page is completed. So I have defined that, and what I want is basically I want to call map.on pointer drag event. So whenever a pointer is dragged on the map, it should call on pointer move map function. So whenever a user is doing panning and zooming activity, it should call this function. So I have defined it, and we have defined the function over here. Let us call this onload functions so that we can reach to it very quickly using the find button. So we have defined this function that whenever user is doing panning and zooming activity on the map, it should call this function, and what it is doing, it is basically updating the latitude longitude information of the center of the map into the span. So let me save it, and now let me refresh this thing. So now I have refreshed the map, and you can see when I move the cursor or when I do the panning and zooming of the map, this latitude longitude information is changing based on center of the map. So this is how it is updating. So we have completed this thing so far. So now we have header containing active layer and latitude longitude information. We have map with layer switcher. So this is done. Now we'll be adding this measure length functionality to our field serve application. So we'll be adding that button here. Let us go to this part. Now here you can see this measure length button is available into the map area. So what we have to do is basically we'll go into the map dig now, and we'll add a button over here. So we are giving it ID button length, and we are giving it a title. And now to give it an icon, I am using a font awesome. So I am using this particular font awesome icon, that is ruler combined. It is a very beautiful icon, and then I am giving it a size 2x, so it will be slightly bigger. So this is about HTML part. Now let us go to the styling part, that where it should be placed, how it should look like. We are defining styling part of it. So I want the Z index to be, should be on top, so I am defining Z index like this. position to be absolute, background color to be transparent. So I'll copy this background color. Basically I want background color to be transparent. Only icon should be available on the screen. It looks good. Width 40 px. Left 5px, dot 5px, border none, color black. Okay. So I just want to keep this 30px by 30px so that it is slightly small. So we have defined the style of it. Now let us see whether it is available on the screen or not. Yeah, you can see over here measure length button is available. Now let me change some bottom part of it. Left bottom. Okay. Our measure button is available. Now I want button to turn into red when it is clicked. So I am adding a code for that. Let me copy this. And it has to turn into red when it is clicked. So it has to turn into red when it is clicked. Okay, so we have done the HTML part of it, style part of it. Now we will go to the, now here we will define what it should do when it is clicked. So I'm using Java query, jQuery functionality. To look for button and then click event. So I am calling a function. So as soon as the button is clicked, what I want is I want to change it to red. So I want to change the button to red. If it is clicked again, I want to change it to black. So I'll toggle the class. So I am changing the class, toggling the class when it is clicked. Now if it has class clicked, then I want to do something. It means when it is red, it should do some activity. If there is some existing interaction, I want to remove it, and then I want to add interaction of line string. And if the button is not having the class clicked, means it is user wants to stop measure length activity. So I want to remove interaction draw. I want to clear the source, and I want to remove the measure related in content. For example, what I am saying is When the user is clicking, it should turn into red, and then user will do some measure activity. So double click to complete. So it will have some content on the map. So when the user is clicking back on it, it should remove all this content. So when I clicking on it, see, it is removed. So we are writing the code for that to remove the content. So what we have seen, get element by class. I want to remove all these elements. So I want to remove all the elements which is having this class. So I am looping through that and removing it. So you can understand this thing. If it is having all these kind of elements, so I am checking it. If the length is greater than 0, then I want to remove. So all the elements will be removed. So when the user clicks on that, it has to add the interaction. So now let us define the code for that. Add the interaction. This is the function which we are calling. So let us add the code for add interaction. So here we will be defining area for general functions which will be called at any given point in time. So rather than spending a lot of time in typing and showing you the coding part of it line by line, I am just pasting this code. It is a simple function, length and area measurement, so I am not spending too much time on it. We will spend time on providing the functionality of survey part, that is add, modify and delete feature. So I have provided the code here. So you can just copy it from here, start length and area measurement up to this point where it is showing and length and area measurement. If you just copy it, the functionality will work perfectly fine. So I copied the code here. If you want to understand this code in detail, I have a separate video on providing length and area measurement functionality. It is a separate video detailed on this topic, so you can just go through that. So for now I'm just saving it. I'm not just going through line by line. So I have provided the code. Now let me see how it is working. So let me refresh the map. Now I have to field survey, load the application. So I have loaded the application. Let us change it to mobile view. So we have provided a measure functionality on top of field survey application. The button is available like this. Now when I click on this button, it turns into red and then interaction available. So I can do the measurement activity. I can click on the map and you can see the measurement information is available. When I double click, measurement information will be available, and then when I click on it again, the information will be removed. So this is how we have provided measurement functionality, but some styling part we have to do. So you can see over here, when I am clicking, this is not looking very beautiful, this tooltip and measurement information. So I want to make it look beautiful, so that so what I am doing is I am adding a styling part to it. So I have copied styling part which is required to support measurement functionality. Now when I save it, and then let me refresh the map. So you can see over here, I can click on it and now you can see it is looking beautiful. Now when I double click, measurement information is available. When I click it back, button will change it to black and this content will be removed. So now when I click on it, you can see the content is removed. So this is all about it. So we have done the header part, we have done the map content, and now like this application we'll be adding the footer content. So now let us add all these buttons onto the map and then we'll add functionality to each and every buttons. So let us go for that. So you can see over here the buttons are available in footer. So we have to do some HTML work into the footer area. Let us do that. For this div element, I am defining the class. Now you can see over here I am using a bootstrap class of button group and button group justified. So there is a bootstrap class. It provides a beautiful button look and feel. So I am using this functionality. So I have defined the div element with button group and button group justified, and now I have to create various buttons. So again, creating a button element, providing say button map, that is our first button, and I am assigning the class. This is again a bootstrap class, so I am assigning a class button dark and button footer. I want to say title, start editing, and then I want to give some icon to it. So again I will use font awesome kind of icon. So I have added icon which is a globe type. So basically I am creating this button, so icon with a globe for the map. So this is the button we have created. Now we have to create similar 6 more buttons. So I'll just use the shortcut key of Visual Code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 copy we have created. So we have to change now name of each and every button. So I'll say button start editing. Here we should call it map, not start editing, right? So we will change this thing. We call it button add feature. But modify which modify attribute. Lastly, we are adding a settings button. Okay, now let us change the icon for that. First of all, globe is okay, and now here we will say we want edit button. Here we want object and group button. You have to ensure that there is no typing mistake, otherwise it will not work. Appropriate icon will not come. Draw polygon, table, cock. So these are the buttons. So what we have done is, in the footer area we have added buttons, and we have used bootstrap classes as well as font awesome icons. So we have basically added all the buttons that we want. But now how it should look like, where it should be placed, so we'll go to styling part of it. Let us come at the bottom. Because we have defined here the class button group, so we'll be using that class and then define the styling part of it. So we want position solute. It has to be on the center, so top 50%. Margin top has to be 19 pixels. So this is how we have defined how button group should be placed in the footer. Now let us save everything and go back to our application. So far we have added this thing. Button should come here if everything is done perfectly. Let us refresh that page. Great. So now we have buttons over here. So we have done majority part of this thing. Now the most critical things will start. We'll add functionality to each and every button and their click events. When we have added all the buttons in the footer area, we will write the codes for click functionality of each and every button so that we can do various editing functionality. Before we do that, I want to add one more capability to my map area, that is restricting the pan and zoom activity for the field surveyor. Why I am doing this? Because there are cases wherein surveyor would like to do the field survey sitting at his home, so he may not be willing to visit the site and then do the survey. So I want the surveyor to visit the site and then do the survey rather than doing sitting at home. So how do I do that? By restricting the pan zoom area of this application, of this map area, based on the position of the surveyor. So here in this application where we have developed, surveyor is able to do the pan zoom for the entire India, entire world, irrespective of his position. So he can do the digitization using this satellite image in this base map. But what I want is surveyor should be able to do pan zoom for based on his location like this. So if you see this particular application here, the application which is fully developed, in this case surveyor cannot do pan zoom beyond a certain limit. What I have done is, based on the surveyor's position GPS coordinate, he can do pan zoom, zoom in, zoom out around the 1 kilometer buffer of his GPS coordinate, its location. So you can see over here, whatever I do, I am not able to go beyond a certain limit, that is 1 kilometer buffer from my location. So I can do zoom in and then I can do the digitization, but I cannot go beyond 1 kilometer buffer of my location. That is restricting my pan zoom activity. So I have to go to this site and then only I can do the digitization. So I want to add this functionality to our existing application. So let us see how to do that. So I am opening the code window. Here I will write the code for restricting surveyors pan zoom activity. So after all the layers are added and layer switcher is added, this is where I want to write this code. Okay. So I will call this, I am adding some command location. So I am defining a variable geolocation and I am using geolocation capability of Openlayers. And I'm setting some of the parameters, tracking options. So I am defining tracking as true. This has to be true, and here it is tracking option, not tracing option. So these are the parameters which I have to set for geolocation. So now based on this tracking is equal to true, it will continuously check the position of the person who is holding this device onto the field. Now I want to restrict the movement based on the GPS location. So let me write the code for that. I'm defining some variable, and now when I'm using the geolocation.on event, when the position is changing, I want to restrict the movement. I'm defining OL feature whose geometry will be set based on geolocation. So I'm defining this variable. Now I will check. Now you can see I'm checking if there is already buffered extent is defined and it has some value. If buffer location is already having some value, I would check the position of the surveyor and buffer extent. If position of the surveyor is within buffer extent, I will allow the map to continue. Otherwise, if the position of the surveyor is outside the buffer extent, I will ask map to zoom to a surveyor location. So let me write the code for that. If surveyor point is inside the buffer extent, I don't want to do anything. Otherwise, I want to zoom the map to surveyor location. So this is where I am checking 1 kilometer. So I created a buffer of 1 kilometer around the surveyor point. So if it is outside the buffer extent, I am setting the map view. And I am setting the zoom to 12. So this is the code I have written. I hope you understand what we are going to do. Now this is where it is completing, so it is checking. But what if buffer extent is not there? So let us write the code for that. That if buffer extent is not there, means the first time when the user opens the application and buffer extent is not established. So we have to define buffer extent, we have to establish buffer extent, and we have to perform the same activity which we have done here. So this is the entire code. I hope you are with me. So we have defined, like, if user is outside, the buffer extent, it has to map has to move back to the user's location. User cannot do digitization outside his own location and within 1 kilometer. So let me save it and let me see if the map is working the way we want. So I'm just refreshing my application. You can see over here my pan and zoom activity is restricted. I am not able to go beyond a certain limit, and map is zoomed at my location. So this is somewhere I am located and map is now restricted. I can still do the zoom in, I can still switch on and off other layers and perform the digitization activity, but I cannot go beyond my position. So this is excellent. This is what we wanted, and it is working perfectly as per our requirement. So now, after completing this, we have completed the entire upper portion, header and map area. Now we'll add functionality to each and every button. Now so far they are just there, they don't have any functionality. So we'll add the functionality. We'll start with the setting button. So what we want in setting is, let us look at here. When I click the setting button, it should allow me to perform selection of the layer for the active layer. So when I click on it, you can see it should open up a window like this, and it should have a drop down with all the layers listed in the drop down. As soon as I select one layer and I go back to map, it should have active layer and layer name. This is what we want from settings button. So let us do that. So this is our application right now. So we'll start with settings button. Let us go to the coding part. So I'll go to the unload functions, and this is where I want to write code for settings button click event. So I'm selecting the setting button, and then in click event I want to write function. I want to open some screen. Yes, so I'm calling a function basically on the click event of a settings button. So I have to write this function now. Let us write that function. I'll be writing that function somewhere here where all the functions are already written. In this general functions area is where I'll be writing that function. So function is very simple. Open subscreen, and I'll ask the name of the screen that we want to open. So you can follow the code along with me. So I am first of all hiding the modal screen, and then I am opening the screen based on the input parameter. It is a very simple function. So I have to provide some input, which screen I want to open, and then accordingly it will open the screen. So by calling this function, I have to provide this input parameter, which screen I want to open. So here I'll specify that parameter. I will call it div settings. Now we have not defined div settings, so let us go to the HTML part. Let me save this, and I am going to HTML, and here we will define div settings. So this is the footer area. Just below that we'll define div settings. So let me quickly add div element with the id is equal to div settings. Make sure that you are giving the correct spelling, otherwise it will not work properly. Class parameter model. Now within this div element, look at here, what we have is in div element settings we have is a label and a drop down box. Along with that we have a header. You can see header has changed. When I click on map, it is GIS field survey. When I go to settings, it is saying settings. So this is what all I have to change. So let us do the coding for that. So div setting should contain other div element with class I am giving it a subheader, and then I am creating a span element within that div which can store that value, settings heading. Settings. So this is done for the subheader part, and then actual div to contain drop down box. The class container. So I'm using bootstrap functionality over here. The class column 12. You can follow the code along with me. It will be easier for you. And then I'm using h4 element. So I have defined the active layer heading here. This is all about this label, and then another div element class column 12 class no padding. Then a select element with name is equal to select layers and id is equal to again the same select layers. So this is all about HTML part of it. We have created a div element to contain subheader, label, and then drop down box. This is what we wanted. So HTML part is done. Now let us do the styling part, how it should look like, because otherwise it will look very ugly. So I'll start with Modal Component. Let me quickly write the code. I hope you understand the CSS part. It is very easy. So you can follow along with me. Now when I am defining model, again it will be 90 vertical height. Why I am keeping this model form 90 vertical height? Because at the bottom I want to maintain all the buttons. Only upper part should change. You can see whichever screen I go, upper part will change, bottom part button will always remain. So I am using this 90%, 10% of these and 80% of these. Rest 10% will remain as it is, and that is why I am defining height as a 90 vertical height. I am not using 100 vertical height. Width 100%. Display, initially I don't want to display, right? I don't want to display the div setting element initially. When I click on setting, then only it should display. So display is none here. Overflow is auto, so that it will have scroll bar if required. Background color, okay, and color, our standard color 46679. This is for model. Now for label setting, I am doing some cosmetics so that it looks perfectly the way we want. So label, how select element should look. I'm defining padding for it. So I'm done with select element of div part settings. Option element, how it should look like. Now let us talk about subheader. So these are all standard which we are defining. It is a basic CSS configuration. Now finally we'll have span subheader. So now we have completed the styling part of it. We have defined style of each and every element. So whether it is a model, button setting, div setting select option, subheader and span header. So let me save it. And then now we have to do the JavaScript part of it. So let us do that. That when I click a button, it should open up a screen. So we have done that. When I click on button settings, it will open up a screen like this. So let us see how it is working. So let me go to the application. This is our application. So you can see over here, when I click on the settings, it is opening up a settings screen like this. It is having a label and then drop down box. Right now this drop down box is empty. So whenever I click settings button in this drop down box, it should have a list of all the layers. So let us write the functionality for that. Let me go to the coding part and then so I should have a layer list which I want to add it to the drop down box. So let me go to the slightly up, and then when we are done with adding all the layers, means we have added base map layers and then we have added land base layers, then I'll create a layer list, write a code here to prepare the layer list. You can see over here I'm checking the map, I'm taking all the layers and I'm looping through all the layers. Now if the layer is base map, you can see over here, when I go to the map area, you can see over here when I go to the map area, and these are the two layers. So in this first iteration I will get a land base group or a base group. If it is a base map group, I don't want to add this layer to my settings drop down. I want to add only layers which I want to digitize. So I will check if it is a base map, it should not add it to the drop down. It should add only if it is not a base map. So this is what I am doing. If the title is base map, I will not add it, so I am not doing anything. If the title is not a base map, then I am taking that group and I am looping through all the layers of that group layers, and I am taking the layers parameter and pushing it into a variable called layer list. So this is how my layer list will be ready at the end of this loop, and then I will simply have to loop through this layer list variable array and then push it all the layers into the drop down box. So let me write the code for that. So I'll go to the general function area. Here I'll write the function add map layer list. Select element where I should populate that list. So it should come as a parameter select element. Now let me write the code for that quickly. Select element. I have selected that element. So first of all, I'll have to make it empty. If it is already containing some values, I have to make it empty, and then I have to add. So first of all, what I am doing is, after making it empty, I am appending a blank variable, blank value into that. So you can see over here, right now I am adding some blank to it. So first element that will always be the blank element into the select drop down box. And now I'm looping through layer list which we have created in the previous code. This is the layer list which we have created. So I'm looping through that. And now I'll append. See, I have forgot to mention D here, append. So again, I'll write the same code as this. So let me just copy this. And then value part I have to change. So here for value, I'll use this value which we have defined right now. So this is how I've added with a variable. So now this is done. Now I simply have to call this function. So I'm calling this function during the onload so that drop down box is populated when the application is loading. So I'm simply calling that function. So that's it. we are calling a function which will populate the all the layers. So now let me refresh the application. Now it is by default opening with a map area. That is how we have configured the application. Now when I click on select element, it is having label drop down box, and now let me click on this. So when I see that it is having all the layers which are added into the map, this is what we wanted. Now when I click on this particular any of this layer, and then when I go to the map element, it should display the active layer like this, that I have selected active layer. So right now we have to define the functionality for this map element, that whenever I click on this map button, it should open up a map like this. You can see over here in our other application, when I click on this select element settings button, I can select the layer, then I click on map element, it will show up a map, and then active layer will be defined as GIS building based on our selection in the settings. So here now what is left is we have to add the click functionality to this map. We have to define the select functionality. So on selection change, it will update the span for the active layer. So let us do that. So here I am providing the functionality to the map button. So whenever I click on the map button, it will open up a subscreen. But see here, I am not providing anything as an input. So what it will do is it will minimize or unhide. It will hide all the screens and it will show map screen only. So this is it. Now what we want is we want a span to change based on the active layer selection. So we have to write the function for active layer change. So whenever I change in the drop down, it should do something. So let us write the code for that. So here you can see I have added a code, like when I change the selection in my cell layers, what it should do, it should define a variable based on the selected layer, and then it should change the content of the span. So we have done two things. When I click on a map button, it will open up a map screen. At the same time, when I change the active layer, it will change the content of the span. So let us see if it is working or not. So let me refresh the application. So it will open up like this. When I click on, so right now see active layer is not defined. Now when I click on settings, I select one of the layers, say GIS road. Now when I click on map, it should open up a map. So it is opening, and you can see over here active layer is GIS road. So it is working perfectly the way we want. So now settings button activity is done. We are not left with anything to be done with settings button. We are done with map button also. It has to open up a map, nothing more than that. Now we will do coding for this all these buttons. Initially what I want is, like here, let me refresh this application. You can see when this application is initially loading, only setting button is enabled and map button is enabled, because none of the layer is selected as active layer. There is no meaning of having functionality of this button. So initially I want all these button to be disabled. When I click on settings button, when I select one of the layer, that time only this should be enabled. You can see over here, when I select the layer, then only it is available. When it is none, it is disabled. You can see. Now when this is enabled, I go to the map, and then this active layer should come. So we have to add this functionality. So let us see. First of all, we will disable. When I select something here, then only start editing button should be enabled, others should still remain disabled. Let us do the coding for that. So on the onload area, first of all, I have to write the code for disabling the button. You see over here, these are the few simple lines. So through jQuery, I am selecting the button element, and then I am changing the attribute disable to true. So initially all these buttons will be disabled, which are start editing, add feature, modify attribute, and delete feature. So only map and settings button will be enabled by default. Now what I want is, whenever I select any layer into the what I want is whenever I select any layer through settings as active layer, then it should enable start editing. So let me copy this. Here you can see if the active layer is not null, means if it's some layer is selected, then I should enable it, disable it to false, so it will be enabled. Otherwise it should keep it disabled. So you can see over here, if some layer is selected and it is having some active layer name value, then it will be enabled, means disable false, otherwise it will remain disabled as it is. So this is what we wanted. Let me save this application and let me refresh it. So initially see all these layers are disabled, all these buttons are disabled. Now when I click on this settings button, when I select something, say road, I want start editing to be enabled, so it is enabled. You can see over here, I can go to the map and start editing is already enabled. So this is the coding we have done, enabling and disabling of the buttons. Now what we want? Now we want to write the code for start editing button. So when I click on start editing button, what should have? Let us see over here. I am displaying all the land-based layers. Here we have selected one of the layer as active layer. So when I click on start editing button, it should show me on the map the layer which has been selected as active layer, and it should highlight all the features of the active layer. So when I click on it, you can see roads are highlighted because here road is active layer. Now let me go back and then disable this thing. So this is stop editing. Now if I change the layer, for example, if I change to building, I come back to map, and if I click on start editing, you can see building is highlighted. So based on my active layer, it should highlight the feature of that particular layer, all the feature which are visible on the map. And when I click on again on start editing button, it means I want to stop. See, button is red means editing is already started. When I click again, it will turn to white, it is a stop editing, and then you can see the highlighted features are gone. It means that now I cannot do the editing. So I want to add all this functionality. Let me repeat it. When I click it, it should highlight all the features of a particular layer, active layer. When I click it again, means when I want to do stop editing, it should remove the highlight, so features should not be available for editing. So when I click back, features are removed. So I want to add this functionality to the map, so let us do that. So you can see over here, I have added a code for start editing functionality. Now rather than writing code each and every line, it is taking too much time, a lot of typographical errors which I have to correct. So what I am doing is I have added the code, and I'll explain you line by line. So what I have done is, as soon as I click start editing button, first of all it should open up a map screen. You can see over here, I'm going to refresh this application. Now I'm going to settings. Now I click road. Now there are two ways. Either I go to map and then do the start editing. Let me show you here. I can go to the map and then do the start editing, and then features are highlighted. Or from the settings panel itself, I should be able to click straight away start editing, and then it should open up a map and features are highlighted. So what I'm doing is here, first of all, as soon as the start editing button is clicked, I am opening a map. So this is the code which will open up a map area, and then if the start editing button is clicked, it should change into red. So you can see over here, as soon as I click start editing, it is changing into red. That is coming from this code. So button is turning into red, and now if the button is red, then what I want to do is I want to highlight the features, right? So this is the style which will be used to highlight the feature. So I am defining, if it is a polygon, then this is how it should follow. This is the stroke style, and this is the point style. So this is the style that will be followed when I want to highlight the feature. Now here I am checking whether if there is anything already there. If layers are already highlighted for some other feature, then I want to remove that, and then I want to create a new layer that I am calling it as a edit layer, and that layer will be added based on the active layer. So this is the active layer name which I am picking up. Now where it is defined? It is defined as soon as I click the active layer. I select the active layer in the settings. You can see over here, let me show you in the code. See here, we have defined active layer name as soon as I change the selection in my settings panel. So as soon as I change the active layer, it will be defined and it will be available as a variable here. So what I am doing is basically I am calling a URL which will fetch all the features which are visible on the map in the form of GeoJSON, and I am using B box criteria, that is bounding box. So only those features which are visible on the map area, only those which features will be fetched in the form of GeoJSON, and then it will be added into the map. It will follow this style which we have already defined earlier. So it will follow this style and it will be added into the map. Now once I do the start editing, all the other buttons should be enabled. Means after doing start editing, I should be able to add feature, modify attribute, and delete feature. So I am enabling all those buttons because I have already done the start editing. So this is the code that will follow if I do the start editing. When I do the stop editing, what should happen? This is what it will happen. When I do the stop editing, it will ask me if there are any modified feature and I have not saved yet. It will ask me, do you want to save? If I say yes, it will loop through the save edits functionality. If I say no, it will clear the modified feature, it will clear all the list, and then it will follow the next course of action. So what it will do is, if I do the stop editing, likewise you can see here, when I do the start editing, I have enabled all the buttons. So when I do the stop editing, I have to disable all the editing buttons, that is add feature, modify attributes, and delete feature. So all those buttons will be disabled. Okay, so those buttons will be disabled. This is the line which is not required. So I am removing those lines which are not required. And when I do the stop editing, it has to remove the highlighted feature, so it will remove through this line. So edit GeoJSON dot clear, right? So it will remove that layer, and then it will remove the interactions also. So we will see what interaction it has to remove. So this is the functionality of a start editing button. Okay, now let us see how it works. So we have done the coding part of it. Now we will see how it works. So let me refresh the application. So initially all buttons are disabled. I will go to select and select the road as a active layer, and now when I click on the start editing button, it should open up a map. It should highlight all the roads. You can see it has highlighted all the roads. At the same time, it has enabled all the editing buttons. Let me repeat and show it to you. I'm refreshing the application. So all the buttons are disabled by default. Only map and select settings button is enabled. Now when I click on settings, I am defining active layers. This time I am defining building as active layer. Either I can select the map button, switch on the layers, and then do the start editing. So building is highlighted. Otherwise, I can go to the road button, click the start editing straight from here, and you can see road is highlighted. So this is working perfectly fine, but what I see is when I click on the start editing button, it is not turning into red the way we want. So we have not defined the style. What should happen when I click on it? So let us define the style for it. So this is where I'm defining. You can see there are various buttons. So settings button, start editing button. So now when I click on start editing, it should turn into red. Similarly, I have defined style for all the buttons. When I click them, it should turn into red. Now let us see that if it is working. So I am selecting active layer, road, and then when I click on start editing, it is still not turning into red. Let me refresh it properly, or let me check if I have not saved it. See, I have not saved it. Let me save it first and then only refresh it, and then active layer, click start editing. See, it is turning into red. Now when I do the stop editing, it will turn into white. Okay, so when I do the stop editing, it is giving some error. Select interaction is not defined. True, we have not defined the select interaction. We'll define it now. So this is where it is giving the error. We have not defined this interaction. Yes, we have not defined it. Now we will define it. So far application is working perfectly fine. We have added functionality to start editing button. Now when these buttons are enabled, add feature, modify attribute, and delete feature. Now let us add functionality to each and every button one by one. So now I will start with start editing and then add feature functionality. So I'm adding the code for add feature now. So this is the code for start editing. Just below that I will add the code for add feature functionality. So rather than start editing, I'll put this comment as add feature functionality. Now let us understand this code. Now whenever user clicks on add feature, if the map screen is not open, it should open, but it will not happen. But still I have written that if the map screen is not open, it should open the map screen, because ultimately user will add the feature on the map. Now first of all, whenever I click any button, it should turn into red. It is happening from here, and we have already defined the style for turning it into red, right? So it will turn into red. Now if the button is clicked, means if the button is red, user want to add the feature. As soon as user has decided to add the feature, means it has selected add feature functionality, other button should be disabled. Means then I don't want to modify the feature, modify attribute, or delete the feature. I want to add the feature, so I'm disabling all those buttons. Let me remove this thing. So I'm disabling all the features. Now while I'm doing the add feature, I'm checking if there are existing edits which are not saved. I'm checking it through this variable modify feature list. If it is blank, no issue, but if there are some edits and which are not saved, I'm asking user, do you want to save edits? If user says yes, I will call this save edit functionality. If user says no, I will clear the list. So all the previous editing will be removed, and then I'll move further. I will define that I want to do an insert task. Add feature means I want to insert into the database. Second thing that I'm doing is, if there are already any interaction added onto the map, I will remove all those interaction and I will add only add feature related interactions. So this is what I'm doing. When user has completed editing and now user is clicking back so that it will turn from red to white again, what I should do, I should enable all other buttons, because user has completed add feature. User may want to modify feature, or user may want to modify attributes. So I have enabled all other buttons, and then I am removing the interaction which I have added during the add feature. So I am removing that interaction. So while doing start editing, I am adding the interaction. Once I have completed editing, I have added feature, I am removing the add feature related interaction. So let us see what I am doing in this add feature. So I'll have to write the code for that. Let me add the code for that. Now I'm going to general functions which we have defined this area, general functions, and here I'm adding the code for add feature. So what is happening in add feature is I'm defining a variable interaction which I'll be adding into the map. Now here in first part I'm checking if there is already some interaction or if there is already selected feature. I want to remove that. Second thing, I am checking if there are already any interaction. I want to remove that. If there are already snapping interaction, I want to remove that also. So while adding interaction, I am checking if there are existing interaction or not. If they are there, I will remove it. Next, what I am doing is I am defining that I want to add it the GeoJSON which has already been added. You remember that during the start editing functionality we have added edit GeoJSON into the map which is highlighting the features based on the active layer. So I am selecting those features as a source feature which I want to edit or in which I want to push an object. So edit GeoJSON is identified as a source in which I want to add some more feature, and then I am adding an interaction, that is a draw interaction, and then this draw interaction will consider edit geojson dot source as a source. So basically what I am saying is I'll be editing or adding feature into the layer which I have defined as a active layer. And then what is the geometry type, whether I am doing a polygon editing, line editing or a point editing, that will again come from the active layer. So I have defined edit GeoJSON. So I am taking the source of it, I am taking the first feature of it, and then based on the geometry and geometry type it will define the interaction. So this is dynamic. So if my active layer is a polygon layer, automatically interaction will be polygon. If it is a point or line, automatically interaction will be point or line based on the active layer selection. And this is the interaction style, means when I do the digitization how it should look like. Let me show you here. I have selected road as active layer, so it is a line layer. Now when I do the start editing, roads are highlighted, and when I add feature you can see it is added line interaction, and this is the style dash pattern. So this dash pattern is nothing but a interaction style. So that is what we have defined over here, dash pattern. But here we have to define that. So let me define the, what I am doing is while I have defined draw interaction, just below that I am defining interaction style. So I am giving it how, if it is a polygon how it should look like, if it is a line how it should look like, and if it is a point how it should look like. So I have defined that. So from here it will take this parameter and the interaction style will come to this style. It will be applied to this interaction. So interaction has been applied. Now I'll add the interaction to map. At the same time, when I do the editing, it should follow the snapping so that it will not generate gaps or sliver kind of a polygon. So I'm defining a snap interaction, and then active layer is selected for snapping, and I am adding snap interaction to my map. So I have defined draw interaction, I have defined snap interaction. Now what should happen once the user completes the drawing? Let me show you again here. User wants to add a road here, so user is doing the editing. User will double click to complete the editing, but what should happen when user is double clicking or completing the road? Let me show you here. Now I am double clicking. See, it is showing all the attributes of a road layer which are defined in the PostgIS. So it is showing all the attributes, and user can type the attributes like road A, type main road, and then it should provide the option to save it. At the same time user can click cancel also. So all geometrical editing and this attribute will be cancelled. It will not post into the database, but when the user select the save, it should push geometry as well as this attribute in the appropriate attribute column. It should push into the PostgIS database and save it. So when I click on save, it should save this line as a road into the database along with attributes. This is what we want when user completes the editing. So this is where in draw and functionality, when I'm using interaction on draw and when the user completes the drawing, what it should do? it should take this E parameter, and E dot feature will be defined as a feature. And so I will define the geometry of this feature, and then you can see this is the most important parameter, modify feature list dot post feature. So every time I'm checking modify feature list whether user has already done some editing or not. So where it is getting populated here, user has done completed editing, it has digitized the feature. When the user clicks double click, I am populating modified feature list, I am adding that feature. Now I have to update, I have to show the attribute screen to the user. So for that what I have to do is I am taking again the highlighted layer, active layer, and I am taking all the properties of that highlighted active layer, and then I am dynamically creating various elements. You can see I am creating the div element, and I am looping through all these properties, and I am adding all those properties as a div element. Property label I am showing in the form of a label. So you can see over here when I add some feature, I am adding some row, you can see attribute name will come as a label, and it will provide an input box to type down the value. So all the column names will come like this labels, and then it will allow the user to add the value. So this is where it is happening. I am defining the label, and it is taking the key parameter, which is nothing but the name of the attribute column, and then I am creating an input element dynamically, and then its value will be blank so that user can type it, and this will be created dynamically, it is not fixed. So if I select road, polygon, building, landmark, whatever, based on the attribute structure defined in PostgIS, automatically all the attributes will be available to user for entering the value. So I am appending all those labels and input box into the div element, and then finally I am opening the screen for attribute update. Now we have not defined this attribute update screen, so let us define it in HTML. So I am opening the HTML part. So the way we have defined settings screen, we have to define attribute update screen. So here you can see I have provided attribute update screen. So this is again a model with ID attribute update, and it is following a class div subheader. So again you can see over here, let me show you, it has a subheader with the value attributes, and then in the other portion it is showing all the attributes, plus it is having save and cancel button. So you can see everything is available over here. It is having a subheader with the attribute. At the same time, attribute container, you can see this portion attribute container will be coming dynamically from here. So this is where it is coming. So you can see this line, append child all the div elements, where we are appending attribute container, where it is defined here. So this is how it is linked, and then ultimately we have a div for save and cancel button. So these are the buttons, save and cancel, they are defined here. Save button is given a primary kind of a style, and cancel is a warning kind of a style. So it is this classes are coming from bootstrap classes, that is the resource I have used. So we have defined attribute update. Now so HTML part is done. We have also done the JavaScript part, but then we have to do the styling part of it. So let me do the styling part for attribute update container. Style for, so this is a style for attribute update container. You can see inputs, I'm asking it to be gray. Save button should have this much width, cancel button should have this much width. These are the simple styles we have to define for attribute container. So let me save it, and let us see if our code is working. So I'm opening up the application. This is the application which we are working on. Let me refresh it. Select the active layer. Now once it is selected, let me click on start editing. So you can see the roads which we have digitized are available. Let me switch on the language layer. So roads which we have digitized are available as a active layer and they are highlighted. Now when I click on add feature button, it is turning into red and then it is giving some error. Click selected feature overlay is not defined because we have not defined. Let us go to that part, and we have not defined click selected feature overlay. So for time being I am removing it because it is not required at this point in time because we have not added it into this. Now let me refresh. Let me switch on the layers. So they are switched on. You can see the road the way we have digitized. Now let me highlight the road, start editing. So roads are highlighted. Now when I click on add feature button, it has added the interaction as per the requirement. Now let me add a road onto the screen. So I am doing the editing. You can see it is following the style the way we want. Now when I double click, it is opening the attributes the way we want. Fantastic. So now let me call it a road B. Let me call it a straight road and let me save it. So as soon as I click save, it is not doing anything. Why? Because we have not defined, we have not written a code. We have written a code so far that it should open an attribute which show save and cancel button and list of attributes. But what should happen if I click on save or cancel? Let us write the code for that. So let me go to the bottom part of the code on load functions. Just below this I'm adding code. So you can see over here cancel functionality is very much simple. When I want to cancel it, I want to clear the content of attribute container. You can see over here whatever I have displayed in this attribute container, I have to clear that. So that's what I'm doing through HTML, making it blank. And then I want to open the screen, means this functionality will open up a map screen. So as soon as I click this cancel button, it should open up a map screen. At the same time, because I don't want to save the edit, it should clear all the modified feature list. So that's what it is doing. And then if the edit task is update attribute, it is refreshing the GeoJSON that is displayed on the map. So we have added cancel functionality. Why I am refreshing this thing? Because user has done some editing task, user has created a feature and I don't want to save it, so it has to refresh the screen so that that editing is removed. So this is the code for that. But what happens when user clicks the save? So this is the most important functionality. When the user wants to click the save and users want to save the database, so what we are doing is we are creating a feature based on the modified feature list. So user has created one feature, I am capturing it into the feature and then I am taking all the properties of that feature, and then this is the most important part. I am modifying all the feature properties based on the attribute entry that user has done. So this is, it is looking through all the attribute, its value, and then it is assigning to the feature properties. You can see we are calling the feature properties and then its ID, and then we are changing its value based on this dot children dot value. So we are changing all the feature properties and then we are assigning back feature properties based on the whatever modification we have done based on the attribute entry what user has done. So this is where we are changing all the feature properties, and then this modified feature with all the attributes is pushed into the clones variable. Clones is nothing but a variable, array variable. So I'm creating a feature, I'm creating a clone out of it, and then I'm pushing all the features into the clones variable. Now if the task is insert, means when we are doing add feature functionality, it will call a transact WFS functionality, which is a very important. So let us see. So let me add a code for transact WFS functionality. So let me go to the general function area, and then I'll be adding the code for transact WFS functionality. So this is a general function area just before on-road functions. So this is the code for transact WFS. Let me explain you. This is a very important function. So let us go line by line. So what I'm doing is I'm using Openlayers format WFS, and then I'm creating a variable format WFS. This is functionality that is developed because the GeoServer requires a particular format in which we can send the request to modify the feature. So we want to generate that particular format so that it can push the feature into the database. So this is where transact WFS function starts. So it is taking two parameters, mode and feature. Mode means the kind of task that we want to do, whether we are doing insert, update or delete. So that is mode, that will come from the place from where we are calling, and feature is the feature that we want to push into the database. And then this is where it is actually doing the formatting part. So we are using ol.format.gml, and it is asking which is the workspace in which you want to push the database, which is the layer in which you want to push the database in the PostgIS, which is the layer in which you want to push the feature, and then what kind of a functionality. So we are using a WFS functionality. It is version 1.1.0, and type of request is a get feature request. This is the projection system. And now whether we are doing insert, update or delete, so I have written a single code for all these. So we will call this transact WFS again and again, but for now when we are doing add feature, that is insert, so we are doing a bulk feature insert, so we can, it will follow this code. If we are inserting a single feature, it will follow this code. So here we are inserting a single feature, so it will call format WFS dot write transaction. So it is basically creating a code which GeoServer will accept. So it is creating a request format. So here in this node, request format will be created, and then we have to follow the serialization. So I'm using XML serializer class for that. So I'll be serializing this request so that it is available here in this variable. Now what happens is, in my database the name of the geometry column is not full geometry, but it is geo. So in this entire request, I have to replace this geometry column name from geometry to geo. So this is the code for that. So if the request is insert, update or update attributes, there are various locations where I have to change the geometry column name. So for that I have written a code here, you can see, and then I'm calling a Ajax functionality. Finally, when the request is available in the format that we require, I'm calling a Ajax functionality, and then it is a post type of a request, and this is where I'm providing the request. So if it is success, it will save the feature into the database. If there is an error, it will push the error, it will show the error saying that error saving feature to the GeoServer, and then I am doing the GeoServer dot refresh. So my highlighted feature will be refreshed to show that a new feature has been added. So this is the entire code for saving the feature into the database. So transact WFS will do all the job for us. So this is how the feature is saved into the database. Now once we have written the code, let me save it and then go to our application and refresh it. So this is the map. See, it is not allowing me to move away from my location. You can see restricted pan and zoom. Let me select some layer. This time let me select the building. Let me go to start editing. So building is highlighted. I have not switched on the layers, so features are added. Now let me digitize the building somewhere here. So these are multiple buildings. Let me digitize that. So I'm clicking add feature, and now I am digitizing these buildings. So I am selecting, the buildings based on the on-screen digitization. You can see it is providing polygon type of interaction because I have selected building as a So I have completed building digitization. Let me double click to complete. It is asking me the attributes. For building, again same attributes are defined. So I will say that something earth complex and it is type commercial. Let me put it like this. Now when I click the save button, it is saved into the database. Polygon geometry saved with attributes. Now how to check whether it is saved or not with attributes? So let me click back. So I want to complete add feature activity. So when I click back, it is turning into white, and when I do the stop editing, so all the highlighted feature will be removed. Now it is giving some error. Select interaction is not defined on line 606. Let me go to that 606. So because we have not added selected interaction, so it is giving this error for time being. Let me just remove that. Now let me refresh it. But ultimately the feature has been added. It was giving me error when I was doing the stop editing. So let me add the features. You can see the new building which we have digitized is available. So it is pushed into the database. It gave us error when we were doing the stop editing, but it successfully saved the feature. Right. So this is how building is added. Let me add one more building, and this time it should not give error when I'm doing the stop editing. So let me do the start editing. Let me add this building. It looks like a temple. So I'm doing add feature, digitizing this based on my best ability, and then double click here to complete. Now it is asking, I will call it Mahadev temple in cities religious, and let me click on save. So feature is saved into the database along with attributes. I have completed my add feature functionality. I don't want to add more features now, so I'll click on that so that button is disabled. Now let me do the stop editing. It is not giving error now, and the feature is added into the database, but it's not visible because in this screen feature is coming based on the tile. So when I do pan, zoom in, zoom out, you may see that features will be added. New tiles will be generated automatically. See, now tiles is generated, so it is available in the building. So I have to keep zooming and zoom out, or if I want to see the building, then I have to refresh. There are two ways. So I have refreshed it, and then when I switch on the layer, you can see now this building is available. So ultimately building is pushed into the database. So we have completed working on add feature functionality. Now we will go to the modify feature. It means that we want to modify either the shape of the building or the attributes of the building, any of these things. So let us write the code for that. So just beside the add feature, let me go down and then let me write the code for modify feature. See, this is the code. It's a long code for modify feature. Now let us understand line by line. I want to modify feature, so when user clicks on it, I am defining the task as update. Earlier it was an insert task. Now it is a update task because user is updating the existing feature. As soon as user clicks on this update feature button, if the map screen is not open, I should open that. So this is where I am doing that, and then I should turn the button into red because user has clicked on it. Now when the button is red means user want to modify the feature. What I have to do is I have to disable other editing functionality, that is add feature, modify attribute and delete. I have to disable, and then I have to check if there is already click selected feature overlay. If it is there, I have to remove it, and then I am adding a select interaction onto the map. So you can see over here it will follow the click selected feature style. So let us define that. We have not defined that, so let me define that. Just above the on-road functions, in the general functions area, I am defining click selected feature style and click selected feature overlay. This is nothing but a style. So when I click on the map and I want to select the feature, how it should look like. So if it is polygon, it should look like this. If it is line, and if it is point, it should look like this. And this is nothing but overlay, vector overlay, which will follow this style. So these are the two variables which I have defined. So let us go back to our code, modify feature. So when I click on the map, I want to select some feature because I want to modify that. Let us see how it will work. So here, now I don't want to do the add feature, I want to do modify feature. So I'll click on that, button will change to red. Now I have to select the feature which I want to modify. So right now road layer is highlighted. Let me click on the road. So it is highlighted with yellow color, showing that I want to modify this feature. Now how to modify? As soon as I click on any of the vertex, it will be available for movement. You can see I have clicked on a vertex and I can move that vertex, so that shape of the feature will change accordingly. So what I am doing is, let me shift it to here. Let me shift this vertex to here, to actual road. Let me shift this vertex to some other location here. So now it is following the actual road. Let me modify this road properly the way it is there. So I have modified the shape of the road, and now I have two options, whether I want to modify the attribute or I just want to modify only the shape. If I want to modify only the shape, just click it again. So system will ask, do you want to save the edits, means this shape modification. If I say okay, it will save it. So this is the functionality we are developing. So here I have added the select interaction, so that on the first click feature will be selected to show that which is the feature you want to modify. It is happening here, and then whichever feature is selected, I am assigning modify interaction. So you can see ol.interaction.modify, and I am using this selected feature over here. So I am assigning modification functionality to the selected feature only. Other features will not have modification interaction. So I am adding a modify interaction to the map, and then snapping, because when I want to modify the feature, I want to snap it to the other features in the same layer. So I am defining the snap interaction and I am adding the snap interaction to the map. Now what happens when the user has completed the modification? Let us define that here. So when the user has completed the modification, means modify and event is fired, I will check if there are any features into the modified feature list. If they are there, I will check whether it is an existing feature, because let me show you here. Let me start modification, and now this time I want to modify this particular line. Okay, now when I click on this vertex and modify, this is a modify and event, but still I am continuing modification of this particular object only. I am extending here. So in this case, modify and event has fired 2 times. So I have to check whether the same feature which I am modifying, if I am modifying the same feature, I don't want to show the attribute. I want to show the attribute only when I am selecting some other feature for modification. Like I have completed modification of this feature, and now when I select some other feature, at that time it should show me the attribute of the previous feature which I have already modified. And when I click on save, it will save the shape as well as attribute. So this is what I am doing here through this code. I am checking the ID of the feature which has been modified, and now I am modifying. If it is same, I am not asking for the attribute change. I will continue to modify. So this is the code I am doing. I am pushing the feature into modify feature list. Now when the user selects the other feature, user has already modified one feature and now user selects the other feature for modification. That time I'm checking if user has already modified one feature, then I should ask the attribute. So here again we'll follow the same thing. We will generate the attribute list dynamically from the object properties, and so attributes will be available for modification. And you can see over here all the attributes are going into the attribute container, which we have defined in HTML part, which is blank. So all the attributes will be generated dynamically in the form of labels and input box. These are the labels and input box, and it will be updated into the attribute container, and immediately it will open up a attribute updation screen. Attribute updation screen is again having a save and cancel button. So user can either the save geometry change, attribute change, or user can cancel also. So this is the entire functionality. Now this is the code when user has clicked the button. But when user has completed modification of various features and user now want to stop modification, what should happen? It should, when the user wants to stop modification, it should enable all other editing functionality like add feature, modify attribute, and delete feature. So all those buttons which we have previously disabled now will be enabled again, and then at the time of stopping it will again check whether user is having any unsaved edits. If they are there, it will ask for save edits. If they are not there, it will move ahead and it will remove all the selection overlays. Like if there are only some available selected features with yellow color, it has to remove that, because now user is not willing to modify, so it has to remove that. It has to remove all the interaction which are added. You see, while doing the editing, we had added snap editing interaction, we have added modify feature interaction, we have added select interaction. So all these three interaction we have to remove. So it is happening over here. So we are removing the interactions and then we are clearing the edit task as blank. So this is the entire functionality of modify feature. Now let me refresh the map and let us see whether it is working in our application or not. So I am refreshing the application. We have done the coding part for modify feature. Now all these buttons will be enabled only when I select any particular layer and I do the start editing. So see, buildings are available. Let me switch on the layer. So buildings are available for editing. I can do either add building or modify building. Let me do the modify building. So I'm clicking on that. So button is red. So modify functionality is available to me. I want to modify the shape of this temple which we have added. Remember, we have added the attribute as a temple to this. It's a Mahadev temple. So I'm selecting this. So this feature is selected. It turns into yellow, saying that now you can modify. I cannot modify this, but I can modify this. Let me change the shape of this temple. So let me make it slightly bigger temple now. So this is the size of the temple now. It has grown. So this is the size of the temple. Now I have two options. Either I can click this because I don't want to modify the attributes. So let me click on this. So it will ask me, do you want to save the edits? I'll say okay. So edits will be saved. Now it is giving some error. Save edits is not defined perfectly. So we have not defined the save edits functionality. Let me show you here. It is asking me, do you want to save edits? Here it is save edits, but we have not defined this task. So let me add the code for that. Go to general function area. This is a onload function area. So we want to come out of it. We are coming out of it onload function. And here in general function area, I am writing the code for save edits. It is very simple. It is checking if I am already having some modify attribute list. If it is there, then it is creating a clone and it is again calling the same transact WFS function which we have already understood. Based on whether I am doing update or insert, it will call this function. So let me save this code. Now once we have defined save edits, let me go back to my application and let me refresh it. So once I have refreshed the application, let me switch on the layers. So you can see over here features are available. Let me define building as my active layer. Let me click on start editing. Let me go back to that temple again. All the features are highlighted, but the feature which I want to modify, so let me click modify feature. It is enabled. Let me click on the feature which I want to modify, and let me again increase the area. This is the new building now. Let me click here again. So once it will ask for do you want to save it, so I'll say okay. Now it is not giving the error, and you can see the shape of the building. This is the old tile and this is the new shape. Now let me click on stop editing and let me refresh the map. I have to do certain zoom in and zoom outs. So you can see over here a new tile has been generated. So there are still some old tiles and new tiles. So based on users zoom in and zoom out activity, new tiles will be generated, or else I can refresh the map. So if I refresh the map, you can see over here, let me switch on the layer. You can see a building with a new shape. So we have done the modification. We can modify the attributes also. Like, let me again go back to building, start editing. Let me click on it. Let me do the modify feature and then click on it. Now what I'm doing is I'm modifying this time here, and then when I want to modify attribute also, I cannot click straight away here because it will not ask for the attribute change. What I have to do is I have to click some other feature. So when I click that, see it has opened existing attribute Mahadev temple religious. Let me change it from Mahadev temple to Krishna temple and then save it. So modified attributes are saved and they are refreshed on the map. Shape of the building is also refreshed. Now let me click again. See, now we have already saved the edit, so it is not asking for it. Let me stop edit and let me refresh the map. So new tiles are coming. You can see the shape of the building has changed. So this is how we can modify either the shape of the feature or the geometry of the feature. So we have completed editing part of this thing. So we have developed code for this thing. Now we have two buttons remaining: modify attributes and delete feature. So let us write the code for modify attributes. If you follow the code properly, we have already done the coding for modify attributes. If I digitize the feature or if I modify the feature, we are already modifying the attributes. The code is already available. We just have to call those functionalities. So let us enable this modify attribute. So again, I'm going to unload functionalities, and at the bottom, so all the click events, on change events, I'm writing on load because that functionality should be effective only when all the features are loaded. That's why I'm writing it there. Now see, I have added the code for modify attribute button. So when the user clicks on that, it should open up a screen like any other editing functionality. It should open up a map. Then only user can do that. When the user clicks on the button, it should turn into red, the way we have defined our application. Now when the user has clicked on it, means the button is red. I want to disable other editing functionality. You know that by now. Now again, if there is some selected feature on the map, I want to remove that, and then I want to add the interaction. Select interaction for attribute update. So let us see what is that, and then edit task, I am calling it a edit attribute, right? Update attribute, that is the edit task. So it is not insert, it is not update, it is not delete, it is update attribute feature. Let us see how it is working. But what happens when the user wants to complete the edit attribute, modify attribute task? So other editing functionality should be enabled the way we have done. If there are some existing edits, I want to push it into the database. That is happening here. This functionality is not required, code part, so I am removing that. If there are some already existing selected feature, I want to remove that, and then I want to remove all the interaction if they are there at all. Okay, so now let us understand what is happening here. Map.add interaction. selected interaction for attribute update. Now where it is defined, let us see. Let me define it first. So let me define this select interaction for attribute update. So let me go to general function area, come out of onload functionality, and here I am defining select interaction for attribute update. It is nothing but a select interaction again with a selected feature style. So again when I click on any particular feature, it will change to yellow. So that is what this code is doing. When I have selected feature for attribute update, what it should do is it has to simply open up a attribute container, and it should populate attribute container with all the attributes, create labels dynamically, create input box dynamically based on all the feature properties, and it should show attribute update screen. This code entirely we have understood, we have already gone through that, so we will not go line by line, you already understand it by now. So it has to provide attribute container, it should open that screen so that user can change the attribute. This time user is not willing to modify the shape of the feature, so let me save it and let me go to the application. Let us see how it works. Let me refresh this thing. Now I'm selecting building. Let me do the start editing. All the buttons are enabled. I want to modify the attributes. Let me switch on the layers. Now when I click on modify attributes, it is changing to red. Now I want to change the attribute of this temple. Remember we have assigned the attribute Krishna temple and religious. Now let me click on that. So see, Krishna temple and religious, these are the attributes available. Now I want to change from Krishna temple to Ram temple, and then let me save it. It is saved into the database. Whether it is saved or not, let me click it again. See Ram temple. I can cancel it. I can click on any of the building. Let me click on this. It is a sector and residential. Let me call it sector 8 and residential, fully residential, and save it. It is saved into the database. Let me check it. So I'll click it again. So you can see sector 8 and residential. Believe me, this is coming from the database. There is nothing available locally on the mobile device of the user. So it is coming straight from the database. Cancel it. Click on this building. It is Earth Complex, commercial. Let me call it, rather than Earth, I'll say Dev Arcade Complex and commercial. So save it. So it is updated. Click again to check it. It is updated into the database. So this is how modify attribute functionality is working. Now let me do one thing. Let me stop modifying attributes. Let me do stop editing. Now let me change the layer, say landmark. Let me do the start editing. You can see there is only one landmark right now, so let me add a couple of more landmarks. So I'll go to add feature. Let me add a landmark over here. So it is asking for the attributes. I will say some random thing, income tax, cross road, and I will say public something, some type. I'll push it into the database. So now we have two landmarks. Now let me stop adding feature. Let me stop editing. There is only one landmark. Second is not there because styles are not updated. Let me do zooming and zoom out. See, other landmarks is available. So now we have two landmarks. So this is how I added landmarks into the database. Now let me start editing again, and this time I want to modify the attributes. So let me click modify attributes and I'll click on that. So income tax crossroad public, I will say government something. So let me save it. So it is updated into the database. I have modified the attributes. Let me check it again. So it is coming from the database, and from public let's change to government. Now let me stop modifying attribute. I want to move this, so I have to modify the feature, not the attribute. So let me move it from here to, so I'll click on that first, so it is highlighted, and then I can move it from there to somewhere here. I have changed. Now I don't want to modify the attributes, so I'll simply click on it again. It is asking me whether you want to save. I'll say OK. So location has been changed. Let me stop the editing and refresh the map. So tiles will be generated based on the new. See, you can see the landmark is available over here, and it has been shifted from here to here. This is the old tile, believe me. Let me refresh the map so that there is no confusion. So I have refreshed the map. Let me switch on the layers. So you can see there are two landmarks here and here. It is not here. So this is coming straight away from the database. So what we have done is we have done the start editing, add feature, modify attribute. Now only thing that remains is the delete feature. Let us do that also. So I'm adding a code over here. This is the code for delete feature button. So again, when the user clicks on that, it should open up a map screen. It is opening here. It should turn the button into red, and then if the button is red, means the user want to delete the feature. It should disable other buttons, and then it should clear the modify feature list. It should remove if there is any selected feature. It should change the edit task to delete, right? And then it should add interaction, select interaction for delete feature. This is a different interaction. Earlier we added select interaction for attribute update. Here this is select interaction for delete feature. Okay, so this is the interaction. Now when the user wants to stop deleting feature, so I have to enable all other editing functionalities. I have to check if there are unsaved edits. If they are there, I will push it into database. Otherwise, I'll clear the modified feature list. And then I have to remove the select interaction for delete feature. This is what I am doing. So let us understand select interaction for delete feature. So let me add the code for that. Delete feature functionality is the simplest one among all other editing functionalities. So let me go to the general functions area, just about load function, and this is the select interaction for delete feature. Let us see what we are doing here. We are doing nothing but providing the select feature functionality to the map. So this is select interaction. Again, it will follow the same style, that whenever I select any feature, it will turn into yellow. And when the feature is selected, we want to ask to the user whether you want to delete the selected feature. If the user says yes, then call the transact WFS function. Simple. Transact WFS function, what it will do, let us see it again. We have already seen it, but transact WFS function is creating a GML request in a defined format as required by GeoServer. It will check whether it is an insert, update or delete function. If it is a delete function, it will write the transaction as per the delete requirement. So it will create the transaction, and then we will serialize it. We will remove the geometry column from the complete geometry to the geo, because that is how it is defined in PostgreSQL database. And then we will call the Ajax request, which will basically do the modify functionality. So it will delete the feature from the database. If it is successful, it will not show any message. If it is giving some error, it will show some message. So this is the code entirely, and finally it will refresh the screen so that it will show whether a feature has been modified or delete or whatever action we have done. So this is the code. It is a very simple functionality. So let us see how it is working. So I am going to my map. Let me refresh it. So I am refreshing this. Now once it is refreshed, let me do the settings. So my building is my target layer, active layer. Let me do the start editing. Let me switch on the layers. Now I want to delete this particular building. So what I'll do is I'll click on delete feature so that it is red now. Let me zoom to that and let me click on it. As soon as I click on it, it is highlighted and in yellow, and system is asking me whether we want to delete selected feature. If I say okay, it will be immediately deleted. Let me say okay. So you can see it has been deleted, and then but still we have old tile. But if I do zoom in and zoom out, you can see tile has also been removed. These two features are there, but this is the third feature which has been removed. So old tile will continue to show till the time it is refreshed properly. So if we refresh it, tile will be removed like this. So delete functionality is again very much simple. I can click on any of the feature. System will ask whether you want to delete. If I say okay, it will delete. If I say cancel, it will not do anything. Click on the feature. Do you want to delete? Yes. This is how it will be deleted. Now to stop deleting, I have to click on it again. So now if I click, there is nothing happening because we have disabled that functionality. Now when I click on stop editing, this highlighted feature will also be unhighlighted. And now when I refresh the map, remember that we have deleted these two buildings. Now we have only temple remaining. Now let me refresh the application. Let me switch on the layer. We have only one building and then other roads and other things. Now let me change the active layer to a road. Let me do start editing. Let me select delete feature and want to delete this particular road. So I've clicked on it. Do you want to delete? We'll say okay. This road is deleted. You can see from the database. This tile is already there because it is coming from the tiles. If I refresh, even this dotted line will go away. Right? So by now you would have understood that it requires some refresh. So stop deleting feature, stop editing. So we have understood the entire range of all editing functionalities. So this is how you can develop a simple mobile application for GIS field survey. It is very useful because nowadays number of utilities, number of organization, government, private, telecom, they are coming up with the requirement of field survey of capturing not only attributes but they want to capture the feature location also. So they can use this functionality and they can provide the GIS field survey application to their end users on their mobile application. So I hope you are finding this useful. I'll keep coming with more such kind of applications that are useful to users in their day-to-day life. Thank you.